The difference is with densities and dimensions is a bit hard for people to grasp because it sounds like a similar thing, and it is similar. But as we know, there are 9 dimensions, but there are technically 7 densities because the 8th density is the beginning of the next octave or universe of experience. So I like to help people understand what we mean when we say densities. Is that a density refers to the actual vibratory rate of the photon of light. Mm-hmm. And so as the photon increases its vibration, or like the density of light in a certain space, the faster the photon is vibrating in a given space, like if it vibrates 10 times a second versus 100,000 times a second, well, there's a lot more light in the 100,000 times per second space than the 10 times per second space. So that density of light has that much more information, because light is information. Light is energy. So the more energy or information is available, the more ability consciousness has to express itself. So the densities model is very similar to, as you would appreciate, the musical scale. You have 7 major notes. The 8th note is the first note of the next octave, right? Mm-hmm. And so same thing with the color wheel. You have 7 colors. When you get to the 8th color, it's back to red again or whatever. So Ra says that's actually the way that the universe works. And so for that reason, they actually call universes octaves instead.
Yeah. So essentially the universe is an infinite giant keyboard and we're like playing in the lower keys for now.
Yes, that's one of my favorite analogies for the universe. It's like a song the creator is singing, and those 7 notes make up the scale of that song, you could say.
Yeah, I find some similarities too, because as I told you before we start recording, I read and I study and I also teach the book from Barbara Hand-Clow. It's a book called Alchemy of 9 Dimensions, and it's also a channeled material that she channeled from the Pleiadians, who she says that there are 5 fifth dimensional beings, and they're also helping us in this evolution. So let's talk about it. I thought it would be nice if you could take us through the densities. I can maybe throw in some similarities that I find, because I do find a lot of, and I think that was actually one of my questions to you on Instagram. That's how I connected with you. Because I kept hearing you talking about 4th density and the heart chakra and love, unconditional love, and that's very much 5D. Right. I wanted to know, are they the same thing? You were talking earlier about the crystal, the power of the crystal, and according to the Pleiadians, the first dimension is actually an iron core crystal in the very center of planet Earth. And she also says that it's where the Akashic records are. One of the dimensions where the Akashic records are, because it's like the solidification. That's the way I see it. It's the solidification of the cosmos to start planet Earth and to start the evolution. And that's also, I mean, we have iron in our blood, and also we have tiny crystals in our pineal gland. So right, all connected. And the other thing that she talks about is that the frequency that the first dimension is at in hertz is 40, which is where we're at in beta level, when we're awakened, when we're alert. So what is the first density from the material of the Law of One?
Yeah, so many cool parallels here. And I'm very interested in reading this channel work you're talking about, because I'm sure I'll find a ton of mind-blowing similarities as well. So remember, when we talk about densities, we're not talking about physical matter, because that's more of dimensions, but actually the ability consciousness has to express itself based on the vibratory rate of the photon. And so at the first density, we're just talking about the 4 elements: earth, water, fire, air. So consciousness interacts in that form for, at least on our planet, it was about 2 billion years or something. Mineral life, water interacting with fire, magma, lava, air, wind, those elements just keep interacting in a totally randomized pattern until eventually some kind of microbial life evolved on Earth. And that would be the beginning of the second density of consciousness, where now consciousness, or the vibratory rate of the photon, has expanded enough to where consciousness can experience growth and movement, interaction with its environment. So now the movement consciousness does or experiences isn't randomized. It has a purpose and a meaning, right? So second density is everything from basically microbial life through plant life, insect life, and animal life. That's all second density. And third density evolves once consciousness is able to become self-aware. So in each density level, consciousness learns the lessons of that density until it masters them, because everything evolves in the whole universe, right? It's a linear process. So once consciousness masters that, it becomes self-aware, meaning now I know that I exist as a concept in the mind. I can conceptualize existence. So mind comes into play, and that's third density. And that's where the ego evolves through self-awareness. Once I'm an object to myself, now I can think about future, and I can think about the past, and I can define myself according to past and future. And that's what ego is. So ego brings about a lot of really great things and a lot of really challenging, difficult things. Some of the good things it brings about is structure, technology, innovation, the social hierarchy. And it's also important to know that every density correlates to a chakra. So our root chakra is the first density, the red ray, and that's just our basic primal animal nature, which is really just like our survival nature and our sexual nature, just those two things. The second density or second chakra is the sacral, the orange ray chakra, and that's our personal will, our relationship to ourself, the way we think and feel about ourself. And then the third chakra is the solar plexus, which is our relationship to the other. And so that's why the solar plexus chakra is the beginning of ego, because ego is essentially what the mind created through the social hierarchy. How do other people see me? How do I gain favor in their eyes? Because, hey, the more favor I gain in the eyes of the social hierarchy, the higher up the totem pole I go. And vice versa, if I do something that is unfavorable to the hierarchy. So it's really becomes life or death in a way, right? If I do something to the social hierarchy that makes them dismiss me enough, if I upset them or betray them or anger them, they might kick me out of the tribe, or they might even execute me. So all of a sudden, social survival becomes as important as physical primal survival, right? And so through that, we get war, tribalism, separation, division, fight to get to the top, Darwinian evolution at its best, right? And through that war and conflict that consciousness experiences, it eventually starts to learn the lessons of love and oneness. And so this is kind of where our human species is right now, is we're at this kind of precipice of entering the fourth density of consciousness, where consciousness now has the capacity, which it didn't have before, to look out at the world and say, okay, we're all in different bodies, yes, but we're all one being. It's just one consciousness here expressing itself through all these forms. So it goes a lot better for us if we work together and love each other. All this fighting and division really just works against all of us. That's a fourth density perception, right? So this is where we're at, entering fourth density consciousness, which would be synonymous with fifth dimensional consciousness, which, going back to the pyramid, right, as you well know, the fifth dimension kind of represents, if we imagine like a square, that's a four dimensions. The fifth dimension is that point on the top, which creates the pyramid, which is really like an aerial view. Now, I can look down and see that all is one. It's all connected. There's no separation. That's a fifth dimensional perspective, or a fourth density perspective of the universe.